Hey everyone, my name is ex-REDRUP. This is the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode I'm joined by Hidden Mothers bassist Liam Knowles. We discuss the band's brand new debut album, Erosion, Avulsion, signing to Church Road Records, changing from a 5-piece to a quartet, his favourite Every Time I Die album, and loads more. But before we jump into the chat, please consider taking a few seconds of your time to support me and the podcast. You can hit subscribe or follow wherever you're checking this out so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. You can leave a review or a comment. You can go and give the podcast a follow on social media. And there's also a Patreon and a web store if you wanted to go the extra mile. I've shoved links to everything that I've just mentioned in the description of this episode, or you can head to itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now, here's my chat with Liam of Hidden Mothers. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of the It's Not a Phase podcast, where I'm joined by Liam of Hidden Mothers. How you doing, dude?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm really good. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Yeah, thanks for jumping on. Yeah, I think this, we've known each other for quite a while, but I think this is the second time we're actually having like an actual voice conversation. So
yeah, like considering how long we have known each other, and I used to write for your old website many years ago. We've literally met in person once for 30 seconds at Outbreak.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and that's it. Yeah, so no, it's nice to get to spend a bit more time with you.
Yeah, and despite I think we're at so many gigs, at the same gigs, but not realizing until afterwards and stuff. So
we're like ships in the night.
Yeah. But never mind, we're here now. So yeah, I guess big news for you guys is obviously the release of the debut album. How are you feeling about finally sharing these songs with the rest of the world?
It feels like a huge weight being lifted, honestly. Some of these songs have been in our live set in one form or another since 2021, and the album has been finished and ready to go since sort of March or April this year. So this last sort of 6 months or so in particular has felt like the longest 6 months of my life, but it's here now, and I'm very, very excited to share it with people. Like, the reception to the singles has been great. So yeah, just excited to get the rest of it out there now. Yeah,
and just see what people are liking, what people don't like, and just
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few. The reviews have sort of started to trickle in now, so we're just over a week away from the release date, as of today, and we've had sort of 4 reviews so far, all really positive, all clearly kind of got what we're going for, which is always nice. It's one thing to get a nice review, but it's another thing when the reviewer has clearly understood what you were trying to achieve when you wrote the record. And it's been really good so far. And if we get a few that aren't so keen, that's just part of it. I don't think you can put art out into the world unless you're prepared for some people to not like it, and that's fine. But yeah, I mean, so far it's going all right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, you are a relatively new band, obviously this being the first album. So there'll be people listening who might not know who you are at all. There'll be people listening who know very little about who you are and what you're all about. So would you mind briefly explaining just when and how the band came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started in 2019. The concept of the band was born in 2018, but we kind of got the ball rolling properly in 2019. Played our first couple of shows. So the band's based in Sheffield, so we played some shows around sort of Sheffield, Leeds, Manchester, just sort of the major cities in the north of England at the end of 2019. And then COVID hit, and we got kind of stopped in our tracks a little bit just as we were starting to get some momentum going. But we put an EP out in September 2020 that was really more of a sort of a post-black metal kind of black gaze kind of record, which was very much what we set out to do initially. When the band started, that was the sort of band that we set out to be. But over time, that's kind of changed, and what we're doing now and what you can expect from the album has that stuff in there still, but a lot more, post-hardcore and shoegaze and post-metal and lots of other stuff as well to broaden it all out a little bit. So yeah, we're sort of 5 years in at this point with a with a sort of enforced break in the middle. And yeah, it's been 4 years since we put anything out, so it's about bloody time that we did.
Yeah, it's taken a little while, but like you say, something happened in 2020 that that kind of stopped everything. So
yeah. I mean, obviously, it was a lot worse for a lot of people than it was for us, but it was still very frustrating to just be sort of hitting our stride and then have that sort of door closed at that point. Thankfully, we've been able to keep a momentum going. People are still interested in hearing what we've got to put out, and people have still been coming to see us live. So yeah, I think we've done okay to come out of the other side of that.
Yeah,
not too scarred.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we go back to obviously present day, the album. So I believe the working title was Needle and Splinter, and then obviously you've changed to obviously the current finalized title. Talk to me about like what is the meaning behind the album's title, and why was it changed from its working title?
Needle and Splinter was one of those titles that was really, we were still in the what sounds good kind of place rather than the what means something kind of place. I think we were just sort of spitballing for a little while, and it was the one that we all hated the least, so it became the working title. But I think we all exactly, but I think we all knew that it wasn't going to be the final title. And then we I mean, not to blow my own trumpet too much, but I suggested Erosion, Avulsion to the lads, because I was just kind of looking at different words and thinking about the overall sort of themes of the record. And it's a record all about sort of, things falling apart, whether that's personal or societal. Obviously, erosion is, things being worn away gradually over time, and avulsion is things being sort of torn apart quite suddenly and violently. And I just really like the idea of that contrast of, sometimes the decay, whether that's that personal decay or societal, sneaks up on you, and sometimes, it just turns your life upside down, sort of in an instant. So just like the juxtaposition of those two ideas that ultimately mean the same thing, just in very different ways.
Right. Would you say that's that kind of like the common theme and thread throughout the songs on the record as well, then?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So Luke, our guitarist and lead singer, writes all of our lyrics. So it's mostly personal to him. Although there are a couple of songs on there, the Defanged and the Grey, that are a little bit more sort of politically charged rather than sort of personal songs. But yeah, it's just generally about that things can get really bad. But there is also there's still sickness on the record that's more about what it's like to sort of come out the other end of a mental health crisis, and how you sort of rebuild after that. And it's so it's not all negativity, but those are the general themes of the record. Yeah.
Right. And what about the the album artwork? People who are watching the video version can see kind of it's your backdrop on the video here, but talk to me about that. Like, what are we looking at here? What's it representing?
So I'll move my massive head so that you can see it properly. But so we got the art done by a guy called Paul, who's known to the art world as True Spilt Milk Designs. He's done loads of work for bands that we love. He's done work with like Mastiff and 100-Year-Old Man and Body Hound and loads of bands over the years. So we kind of had him in mind from the start when we were thinking about this album, because he's just so good at getting like little bits of detail into things. So what we kind of wanted was this idea of the man-made being overcome by nature or reclaimed by nature. And we wanted it to convey a feeling of sort of isolation, which is why we've got this fella stood up on the roof here with a flare signaling for help, with the one window lit up to show sort of where he's come from. But we just wanted it to feel kind of, like I say, isolated and claustrophobic, and but also not in an overtly metal way, because obviously feeling isolated and claustrophobic is quite a common theme of heavy music and, black metal in particular, which is where we originally came from. But we wanted to play with some more, maybe less traditional metal colors and visuals to kind of show that we've moved on from the restraints of the sort of genre that we started in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because, you mentioned there like nature kind of taken over, man-made constructions and stuff. Because I guess obviously the argument is that we're kind of continuing to build over nature, and that's just kind of eventually going to mostly disappear. Like these cities surrounding like very little greenery and plant life and stuff like that. So yeah, you've kind of flipped it a little bit without it being overtly obvious. It's not like the plants are taking over the building.
No, it's not that Nicolas Cage film where was it? Do you know the film I'm on about?
I know you're talking about. I can't think of what the film is though.
The trees are trying to kill everyone. I think it's The Happening. Is that it?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of bad Nicolas Cage films.
I don't even know if it's Nicolas Cage. It might have been Mark Wahlberg, but it's not like we're definitely not doing look after the world or it'll fight back. So that's not something that we're going for. But we did really like the idea of what would make you feel more isolated than just being shut off from the rest of society because nature has closed in on you.
Yeah.
Just really like that idea.
Yeah. Like I say, it's not like he's surrounded by like Ents from
no.
Lord of the Rings or anything like that.
No, we're not doing like a high fantasy thing. No.
No. Maybe the next album.
Yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned before, obviously there was a 4-year gap between the release of the EP and obviously the release of this album.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously during that time, we mentioned before, obviously there was the lockdowns and you had a lineup change as well. Was there anything else that kind of caused these like bumps in the road that's kind of made it take as long as it did to put this album together and put it out?
Nothing specific, no. I mean, I think when the lockdowns and stuff were lifted, we just wanted to get back out and start playing shows again. And we got so sort of carried away doing that we almost didn't make time to focus on writing a record. So for ages, we were just like, let's just do as many gigs as we can. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad we did that because it gave us that opportunity that we should have had, during the COVID year to sort of hone our live show and get used to playing together. But it definitely, we got to a point where we're like, we should probably think about getting some new stuff out there. And some of the songs on the album have been in our set since 2021, albeit slightly different to the sort of final form that's on there now. But more than anything, it was just a lack of, it's just us not being very organized, to be totally honest with you, and just focusing on doing shows and we're not very good at like writing remotely, although we've got better at that recently, but for a long time, we only really got anything done if we were all in the room together. So that probably slowed us down a little bit as well, but we definitely don't plan on it being another 4 years between this release and the next one. So yeah, I think we've learned our lesson on that one.
Yeah, well, I guess if you prefer to write together, then it's not only like doing that, but obviously you've all got your own personal lives and stuff, and that's obviously going to take into effect like the time that you have to be able to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. Like we're not all just 20-year-olds that can just like pie off our responsibilities and jump in a van for months at a time or hole up in a room for months at a time and write a record. We've all got full-time jobs. Ari and I have got kids. Like, we're not spring chickens anymore, but we make the best of the time that we do get. We all kind of, none of us are under the impression that this is ever going to be like a full-time thing, but we want to be the best part-time band that we possibly can be. So we dedicate the time that we have, and we've definitely got a lot more productive in the last sort of year or so in terms of keeping on top of writing whilst also practicing the existing songs, whilst also coming up with ideas remotely. So yeah, we're in a pretty good place at the minute.
Yeah, and just getting back into the swing of things after a year and a half of not being able to do anything because of the lockdown. So
yeah, absolutely. And like I say, we had the lineup change as well, and that did slow us down a little bit. But the last 12 months, sort of since the first show we did as a 4-piece back in January this year, we've been kind of really on a roll, and yeah, we're much more productive than we've previously been.
Yeah. And how was it like? Obviously, you had those 4 songs for so long. What was it like I know you played album songs as well whilst they were being written and stuff like that, but I imagine you kind of started to get a little bit sick of playing those four original songs after a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely dined out on that EP for as long as we possibly could. And we introduced, we did introduce new songs to the set for, over time, sort of gradually. So Haze and The Grey were in the set from 2021. But then we did, there's other songs on the record, Still Sickness. And in fact, every song on the record except Grandfather and Kate and Green were played live in one form or another over the last few years. So we did gradually sort of phase out the older material, but when at the start of this year, when we became a four-piece, at that point we were really just like, right, let's take all the old stuff out of the set, just play the new material and focus on that and kind of draw a line and move forward. Not to say that we would never play those old songs again, but I think it kind of gave us that opportunity to go, let's really kind of show everyone what we're doing now rather than continue to dwell on something that we released 4 years ago that we've definitely already milked for all it's worth.
Yeah, I guess subconsciously as well, doing that kind of forced you to write and make more music, like you're saying, like time management and stuff like that, the things you mentioned before, that kind of slowed you down a little bit. Kind of, I guess, doing that forced you to, get the ball rolling with the album.
Yeah, definitely. And now that it's finished, we genuinely couldn't be happier with it. And if it's as good as it is because it took us 4 years to get there, then so be it. But like I say, we're very much not. We're not like, oh, we're ready to go back into the studio, because we're nowhere near ready to go back into the studio. But we've got our eyes on what we're doing next, and we've got ideas floating around, and there's sort of bare bones of songs in the ether that we're working on. So it definitely won't be, as long a wait again until the next thing we do.
Yeah. And, just because we mentioned the lineup change, how did that kind of change the dynamics? Like, was a lot of the album already written and then you had to kind of change bits or anything like that?
It didn't change too much. The main thing that changed was Defanged, which is the first single that we released, mostly because we just wanted to kind of take it in a totally different direction. So Luke, like I say, he writes all our lyrics and he's our sort of principal songwriter as well. So when we made the shift to a four-piece and I sort of took on the sort of main screaming duties, most of the songs were like Luke's lyrics anyway. So he was happy for me to just kind of step in and tweak what bits I wanted to tweak, but kind of keep things mostly as they were. Whereas Defanged, or the original version of Defanged, was the one song on the album that our original vocalist had written the lyrics for. So we were sort of like, well, we don't want to just kind of take his lyrics and take credit for his lyrics when he's no longer in the band. That wouldn't be a fair thing to do. So we kind of took a step back from that song and rewrote it and reshaped it a little bit. So that one has changed the most since the lineup change. But most of the other stuff is as it was, just with my voice now and a couple of tweaks here and there.
Right. And has it changed, like, I guess, because you don't have someone who's only, focusing on vocals, I guess there's less of a, I don't know the word would be for it, but I guess there's less guilt of you to have a song that's got like a long instrumental part, or to have an instrumental live, because otherwise he's kind of just, I don't know, just stood there.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has freed us up in that sense. Because we, for a while we were talking about, what our options were. Are we going to replace him, or are we going to, just take on the vocal duties sort of between us? And I think going for the latter has definitely meant that we can, like you say, do some more instrumental passages. We have done a totally instrumental song on the record. There's also a song on the record with no screaming in it whatsoever, and that's fine, because I'll still be playing bass on it. And there's still things for me to do. So it gives us that flexibility. Not to say that we would ever sort of go pure clean vocals, no screaming, whatever, because we've got that tool in our arsenal, and it seems silly not to use it. But it means that if we ever do want to do a song without it, fine, and no one's left with nothing to do. So yeah, I think the dynamic with us as a four-piece is really comfortable, and it's felt right almost immediately. And yeah, it's been a really good thing that's come out of what could have potentially been not a great period for us. But we've definitely landed on our feet, and yeah, we're really happy with how things are going.
Yeah. And so you went into the... Sorry, say again.
I was going to say, it's just been a big learning curve for me, because the most vocals I've ever done has just been like a bit of backing vocals here and there, and now I'm one of the two lead vocalists, and it's hard work.
How you manage it?
It's fucking knackering, but it's I think I'm getting the hang of it now, and playing a load of shows this year has definitely helped.
Yeah. Did you have to learn I guess proper screaming technique or anything like that? I know obviously you had previous bands, but
it's a little bit, yeah. I mean, I've been conscious not to try and learn too much from other people, because I think you can end up trying to emulate other people's techniques. I've more sort of found a voice that was comfortable for me, and then learned how to taught myself how to do that properly. Because in the early days, like we did a tour earlier this year with Cops, and in Brighton on the first night, I clearly just went too hard, and then woke up the next day and could barely speak. We still had 3 shows left to do, so I was just panicking, like I've fucked this up. Like, these are the biggest shows, some of the biggest shows of our career, and I fucked it up. But managed to muddle through, and after that, I sort of took a step back and was like, right, what am I doing wrong? What could I be doing to prevent this? What steps should I take? What warm-ups can I do? What remedies are there to get past that? And since looking into all that stuff, touch wood, I haven't had another incident like that since. But yeah, it was definitely a big sort of learning curve to figure out how to do it without hurting yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay to make mistakes. Like you've learned from the mistake, so that's the main thing, right? So
yeah, as long as I don't do any permanent damage to my voice, I suppose that's the main thing. Which seems to be fine for now. But yeah, I definitely don't want to go through that again.
No. So yeah, you went to No Studios with Joe Clayton to record and produce it. What was it like working with him, and what was that experience like?
He's great. Like, we've recorded everything that we've done so far with him, like right back from day one. And he just really kind of gets it. It's very much, if you want to make a textured, heavy record that has sort of subtleties that need sort of room to breathe, he's your guy for it. Like, he's so good at letting those little moments kind of shine. And he's very good at suggesting little tweaks here and there as well that do enhance the songs without ever feeling like he's kind of stepping on your toes.
Right.
He's got a really good balance of like knowing when to sit back and just let us figure it out by ourselves, and knowing when to step in and say, I think you should do this. And we're very much of the opinion that if your producer suggests something, you should at least try it. Because if they're right, then the song will be better for it, and more often than not, annoyingly, he's right. So yeah, but no, it was a really good experience. I mean, I've known Joe for a long time, long before we started this band, and he just really knows his stuff, and I would absolutely recommend him to anyone.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular that he heavily, a decision he heavily influenced that people would be able to hear very clearly on the album?
One really specific example, on Defanged. So at the end of Defanged, we sort of see Defanged as being a song of 3 parts. Like, there's the initial sort of immediate heavy section, then there's a heavy section in the middle with some more instrumental sections, and then there's the clean singing part at the end. That clean singing part originally wasn't there. It was all screamed vocals all the way through.
Right.
And Joe just sort of said to us, I feel like this song is really good, but it's a lot, and there's no sort of respite from it. Which, if you're a Full of Hell or a Mastiff or something like that, fine, you don't want respite, but we kind of do a little bit, and we want to have that light and dark. So we just tried the same lyrics and the same roughly the same sort of vocal pattern that I was doing, but with Luke doing it instead. And we're like, well, this sounds fantastic. And not only does it sound great, but it also makes the other stuff sound even better because the heavy bits hit harder because you've got something to compare them against.
Yeah, you got the contrast. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, that whole section wouldn't have been there with, well, I don't know, we might have ended up at it eventually, but Joe suggested it, and I'm really glad that he did. It's funny because we were doing like 2 days of vocals, and Adam, our drummer, could only make the first day. We were like, well, that's okay. You don't do any vocals anyway. If you can't make the second day, it's fine. We promise we won't make any drastic changes without you. And then he came back and we were like, we made a drastic change. Sorry. But, you know, I'm sure he definitely agrees that it was the right thing to do. And yeah, it's a more interesting song for it, I think.
Yeah. And it gives you a moment to not scream as much as well. So
exactly, yeah, because we've been playing that song first in our set as well, and it's like it starts just straight out the gate.
Yeah.
No messing around, no intro, no preamble, just there. And you know, it takes a lot out of me, so I'm definitely grateful for that couple of minutes to recover while Luke does his thing.
Yeah. So the album's out on Church Road Records. You signed with them to put this out. So how did that signing come about, and what's it been like being a part of their roster?
I mean, it's been great. Like they're so supportive. They're really on the ball with like press and sorting interviews out. Like when we were at Art Tangent, they were organizing us to speak to loads of people and do loads of interviews. And obviously they've sorted out all the distribution and everything of the record and the physical pressing and everything else, which, you know, if we were to try and do that ourselves on like a DIY basis, I wouldn't even know where to start. So having their experience is really invaluable. In terms of how it came about, we've been chatting to them almost since the beginning, sort of on and off. You know, we sent them the first single and we sent them the first EP, and it was always kind of like, you know, this is really good. Keep doing what you're doing, and maybe one day we can work together, was the general vibe we got from them.
Right.
And, you know, initially I was like, well, maybe they're just being polite, but either way, it's nice that they got back to us. But, you know, we did eventually sort of get to speak to them properly, and we played a show with Employed to Serve in 2021 that helped us get to know Sammy and Justine a little bit better. And, you know, from then it's just sort of spiraled, and I sent Sammy the album last year before it had any vocals on it, and he was just like, well, if the vocals are as good as the rest of it, then yeah, absolutely, this would be something we'd be up for putting out. But it just took quite a while from that point to actually being able to send him a version with the vocals on.
Yeah.
So we sent him that earlier this year, sort of January, February time. And yeah, they were pretty much straight away like, yeah, let's do it. You know, didn't have a slot in the schedule for us till November. And at the time that was like, oh God, that's forever away, but it's here now. So it's all good, and we're excited to get it out.
So you've been sat on this album for like around about a year then, is that right?
It's been finished, like fully finished, since February.
Right.
So we've been sat on it for, you know, 9 months at least. And, you know, we started recording it. I think the first studio session was like May 2023. So the process has been quite a long one, but, you know, it takes as long as it takes.
Yeah. You'd rather take that extra time for it to be right than to rush it out just because you're, you know, excited to put music out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of figured, like, you know, people have waited 4 years. They can wait another couple of months.
Yeah.
Like, just to make sure that we do the right thing and get it out in the right way.
Yeah. So as we're kind of like wrapping this conversation up a bit, I thought we'd take a slight diversion away from Hidden Mothers.
Okay.
That anyone who knows you knows that you're a big Every Time I Die fan.
I am. So
what's your favorite Every Time I Die album?
Fucking hell.
I feel like they're a band where you could say almost any, like, people all have like different answers, and you could say any, right. And I kind of understand whatever the answer would be.
I think I might give you a different answer depending on what sort of mood I'm in when you ask me. Right. The one that will always hold the biggest place in my heart is Hot Damn, just because it was the one I got into them on. I think that there's at least one line in every single song on that album that I've considered getting tattooed on me at one point or another. It was just a real diversion from everything I was listening to at the time. But then I think they had a real incredible run towards the end, as horrible as that sounds, with like from X-Lives onwards. Like, I think X-Lives, from Parts Unknown, Low Teens are all pretty much perfect records. Radical, I thought was fantastic. Maybe a bit long. Like, I don't think all 16 of those songs needed to be on there, but they've never had a bad record.
No.
Even Last Night in Town, which I don't think they'd fully found themselves on, is still better than what most of those bands of that genre were putting out at the time. A real one-off. Very, very sad that it imploded in such a public and,
not a good way,
nasty way. Yeah, it was really kind of horrible as a fan to watch it all sort of unfold. But and for a while after that, I couldn't really listen to them because it just made me sad. But I've recently kind of gone back in, and you just can't deny the quality of those songs, like Keith's lyrics and his vocal delivery, and those riffs. One of the best bands of all time.
Yeah. Like I said, they're one of the few bands I can think of where, everyone has a different answer for the best album, and I could kind of understand whatever answer someone would give.
I think there's maybe like them, Dillinger Escape Plan, and Converge, where I feel like you could say any of their albums is your favorite, and I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. And I think that is, it's testament to a seriously good band that you can be around for 25 years and not have a dud in your discography.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Better Lovers and Many Eyes?
I prefer Better Lovers to Many Eyes, but I can't honestly say I'm that excited about either of them. I think that I'm glad that all of those people are still making music, because it would be a real shame if they weren't. And I think Andy's got a new band coming out soon as well.
I can't remember what it's called. It's like Atomic
something. Because I feel like a lot of the like rock and roll kind of swagger of Every Time I Die came from Andy, or at least like Better Lovers would suggest that, because it seems a lot more like Jordan was responsible for all the chaotic, mathy, angular stuff. But I mean, I'm glad that Better Lovers in particular, obviously they're smashing it and they're getting on all these massive tours and they're selling out all their shows, and it's fucking awesome. But it just doesn't do it for me quite in the same way that Eat It did. But I don't know if any band ever will or ever could. It's too high a bar to try and reach for me.
And I mean, I don't know about you, but the way it seems to me, I don't think they'll get back together.
No. Although, look at Oasis. They fucking hated each other for years, and they're doing it. If the money's right. Well, no. If the money's right, then you never know what you can talk people into.
Yeah, potentially. Let's go back to Hidden Mothers.
Okay, sure.
Plans for 2025. What's on the pipeline?
Shitloads of shows. We've got so much booked already. So we're playing London in January, Reality Unfolds Fest at the New Cross Inn. We're doing a little headline run in February, just mainly focusing on like the north of England, and then a couple of shows with Mastiff in March, and then like loads of festivals. So we're doing Noise Fest, Strange Forms, Uprising, 2000 Trees, obviously,
massive,
and then which is massive, and like that's the one where I keep like pinching myself about, because if you'd have told 16-year-old me that I'd end up on a poster with fucking Alexis on Fire and Coheed and Cambria, like I'd have laughed in your face, but but here we are. Like I got a Coheed and Cambria tattoo on my 18th birthday 20 years ago, and now here we are, and I want to, like, granted not the same day, but I'm totally still telling everyone I played with Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah, why not?
Because when else am I going to get the opportunity to do that? So Trees is nuts. That's one that we never thought would happen, and it's almost made us think, well, if we can do that like without an agent and just off our reputation alone, what else could we do? And I'd definitely like to be one of those bands that make sense at most events. Like, I think a good example recently has been Harriet. Like, Harriet played Slam Dunk and Arctangent and 2000 Trees and Damnation Festival, and like I'm pretty sure there's very little crossover between the Slam Dunk crowd and the Damnation crowd. But Harriet played both, and if they can do it, then so can we. And that's kind of the approach that we're taking going into 2025, is that there's no wrong lineup for us. There's no wrong bands for us to play with. We just want to get out there and play with as many people and do as many cool shows as we can.
Yeah. You've got to think as well, like, the album, like, at the time I was having this conversation, the album isn't out yet, so there's no like reception to the album for them to think, oh, obviously they're popping off, let's bring them onto the lineup. So you've got to kind of think about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a potential step up to come if the album does as well as we hope it will. But you know, for the first half of our year is like pretty much booked out already up to sort of July. Got a bit of time off in June, and I may well keep it that way just so we can have a little rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts so far, and I guess it can only get more so as time goes on.
Yeah, fingers crossed, dude.
Fingers crossed, yeah. I would like, if you're listening, Slam Dunk, Damnation, Reading and Leeds, Glastonbury, whatever, like, we'll do it. Download, yeah. Can't believe I didn't even suggest that. I suggested Reading and Leeds before download. We can play just before fucking Charlie XCX or something. But yeah, like, you just want to get out there really, and so far it's looking like it's going to be a good year.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Liam, thank you very much. I really appreciate you spend the time having a little chat with me. Any final words before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening?
No, just thank you for having us, and you know, if there's anybody watching this who doesn't know who we are or whatever, like, just, you know, the album will be out by the time this comes out, so go give it a listen and come see us, and yeah, come say hi. We'll have a great time. Awesome, dude. Yeah, I'll let you go. Yeah, thanks again, and speak to you soon. All right, cheers, mate. Bye. Bye. And that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in to It's Not a Phase. If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Leave a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Follow the podcast on social media, and maybe even join the Patreon or grab some merch from the store. You can find everything that you need at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again. Hopefully catch you on the next one. And remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.